You are explaining again. Right now, as you read this, you can probably think of 3 conversations from this week alone where you felt the need to justify your decisions, your feelings, your boundaries. And I want you to notice something specific about those moments. When you started explaining, when you began building that elaborate case for why you did what you did or felt what you felt, what happened to the other person's face? Did they lean in with understanding, or did something shift? Did you see a flicker of something in their eyes, something that looked almost like loss of respect? You felt it, did you not? That moment when your explanation stopped sounding like clarity and started sounding like pleading. When your words stopped carrying weight and started sounding hollow, even to your own ears. This is not paranoia. This is not you being overly sensitive or reading too much into things. When you over-explain yourself, when you justify and defend and rationalize, something changes in how people perceive you. Not because they are cruel or judgmental, though some are, but because justification carries a frequency that the human nervous system reads as uncertainty. And uncertainty repels. Think about someone in your life who commands respect without trying. Someone whose no means no, whose yes means yes, whose decisions stand without elaborate explanation. Notice they do not spend 20 minutes justifying why they cannot make it to dinner, or why they chose this career path, or why they need space. They state the thing. They honor the thing. They move on. And somehow, paradoxically, people respect them more for it. You have been doing the opposite your entire life, have you not? You have been building cases, presenting evidence, constructing arguments for your right to exist as you are, to feel what you feel, to want what you want. You learned this somewhere, in your childhood, in that moment when your no was not enough, when your preference required justification, when your feelings needed to be defended before they could be valid. Maybe you grew up in a household where every boundary you tried to set was met with interrogation. Why do you need that? Why do you feel that way? Explain yourself. Convince me. Prove to me that what you are experiencing is real and reasonable and worthy of acknowledgement. So you became excellent at building cases. You became a master attorney, always ready to defend your internal experience to an external judge. The problem is, you never stopped. You carried that pattern into every relationship, every interaction, every moment where you dared to assert yourself. People sense it immediately. When you start explaining too much, when your simple statement morphs into a dissertation, they unconsciously register it as weakness. Not because having reasons is weak, but because the act of over-justification signals that you yourself do not trust your own position. You are not explaining to inform them. You are explaining to convince yourself that you have a right to your own boundary, your own decision, your own reality. They feel that uncertainty radiating from you, and it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them question whether they should respect something you clearly do not respect about yourself. You know that feeling when you text someone a simple boundary and then, before they even respond, you send 3 more paragraphs softening it, explaining it, apologizing for it. You just handed them your power. You took something that could have stood on its own and undermined it completely. They do not consciously think, this person is weak. But something in them registers, this person does not believe in their own words. This person can be pushed. This person's boundaries are negotiable. This pattern destroys relationships in ways you do not even notice until years later. You think you are being considerate by explaining everything, by making sure the other person understands your perspective completely. You think you are being thoughtful, communicative, emotionally mature. But what you are actually doing is parentifying the other person, making them the authority figure who needs to approve of your internal experience before it can be valid. You are recreating that childhood dynamic over and over, turning your partner, your friend, your colleague into the parent who once required you to justify your existence. They did not ask for this role. They do not want to be the judge of whether your feelings make sense. But you keep handing them the gavel, and eventually they take it. Eventually, they start thinking they have the right to approve or deny your reality. Eventually, you are not in an equal relationship anymore. You are in a parent-child dynamic, and you put yourself in the child position. Watch what happens in your body right now. That tightness in your chest, that slight nausea, that resistance to what I'm saying, that is shame. That is the part of you that learned a long time ago that your undefended self is not acceptable, that your raw preferences and feelings and boundaries need to be packaged in reason and logic and justification before they deserve consideration. That voice inside you saying, "But I have good reasons, but I am just trying to help them understand. But what if they think I am being unreasonable?" That voice is the voice of a child who was not allowed to simply be, who had to perform acceptability to receive basic respect. And I need you to hear this clearly. That child's strategy worked then. It kept you safe in an environment where your autonomy was not honored. But you are not in that environment anymore, and that strategy is now destroying you. Pause for a moment. Something inside you moved when I talked about turning people into judges of your reality. You have been doing this for how long? Years? Decades? Your whole life? What I need to know, and I need you to be brutally honest with yourself about this. When was the last time you stated something you wanted or needed without immediately launching into why it is reasonable? When was the last time your no stood alone, naked, without the armor of explanation? You cannot remember, can you? If this is hitting something deep in you, if you are recognizing this pattern and feeling that familiar mix of shame and recognition, comment below exactly these words. I explain too much because I do not trust myself. Copy and paste that. Do not elaborate. Do not explain why you are commenting this, just those words. Because when you write that sentence, you are not just acknowledging a pattern, you are beginning to break it. You are signaling to yourself and to hundreds of other people watching this in silence that you see it now. You see how you have been giving away your power one explanation at a time. And someone scrolling through these comments right now, someone who has spent their entire life justifying their existence, needs to see they are not alone in this exhausting performance. Your comment might be the permission they need to start practicing unexplained boundaries. Think about what you're actually communicating when you over-explain. You are saying, "I do not have inherent worth. My preferences and feelings and decisions only matter if I can prove they are reasonable to you. I am outsourcing my sense of validity to your judgment." You are saying, "I do not trust my own internal compass, so I need you to tell me if this is okay." You are saying, "I will abandon my own reality if you disapprove strongly enough." This is why over-explanation repels people, not because they are bad or cruel, though some are, but because healthy people do not want that much power over someone else's sense of self. They do not want to be responsible for validating every feeling you have. They want to encounter someone who knows themselves, who trusts themselves, who can say, I feel this, or I need this, or I cannot do this, without requiring external approval. When you constantly seek validation through explanation, you are essentially asking them to parent you. And most people, consciously or not, lose respect for someone who needs that much parenting. There is a profound connection between this pattern and what you learned in your early years about autonomy and shame. In healthy development, you should have been allowed to practice autonomy, to make choices, to assert preferences, to say no, all without having to justify why. You should have been given the message that your internal experience is valid simply because you are experiencing it, that your boundaries are worthy of respect simply because they are yours. But if that did not happen, if every assertion of self was met with why, if every boundary was treated as unreasonable until proven otherwise, you internalized a devastating message. You learned that your raw self is not acceptable. You learned that you only deserve respect if you can build a convincing case. You learned to distrust your own internal authority and to constantly seek external validation. This is shame at its core. Not the shame of having done something wrong, but the shame of being fundamentally unacceptable as you are. What happens when you start to shift this? When you begin to practice stating things without elaborate justification? People respond in one of two ways, and both are informative. Some people, the healthy ones, the ones who are waiting for you to show up as an equal, they immediately adjust. They respect your boundaries more, not less. They stop pushing because there is nothing to push against. A clean no is harder to argue with than a no buried in explanation. But other people, the ones who were benefiting from your constant justification, who were comfortable with you in that diminished position, they get uncomfortable. They start pushing harder. They want to know why. They act offended. They tell you that you are being cold, unreasonable, different. And this is where you need to pay close attention. These people were never respecting you. They were training you. They were training you to always provide justification so they could always find holes in it, so your boundaries could always be negotiated. When you stop playing that game, when you stop handing them ammunition to use against you, they reveal themselves. They show you that they were never interested in understanding you. They were interested in controlling the narrative about you. You can physically feel the difference when you practice unexplained boundaries. That first time you say, I cannot make it, without adding, because I have this other thing, and also I have been really tired, and I hope you understand, and I promise I will make it up to you. Just I cannot make it. That first time you do that, your nervous system goes into panic mode. Every alarm in your body starts screaming. You are going to be abandoned. They are going to think you are selfish. They are going to reject you. You have to explain. You have to make them understand. And if you can sit with that panic, if you can let those alarms scream without rushing to soothe them with explanation, something extraordinary happens. The panic peaks, and then it passes. The other person responds, or they do not. They respect the boundary, or they do not. And you discover something you have been terrified to learn your whole life. You are okay either way. Their approval or disapproval does not actually determine your worth. You can exist with an unexplained boundary, and the world does not end. This is where real transformation begins, not in understanding the pattern, because you have probably understood it for years. Real transformation begins when you practice doing it differently even though every cell in your body is screaming at you to explain, to justify, to defend. It begins when you say no, and then, instead of immediately building a case for that no, you sit in the excruciating silence that follows. You let the other person sit with your unexplained boundary. You let them have their reaction without managing it. You stop parentifying them by making them the arbiter of whether your feelings are reasonable. You start treating them like an equal who can handle your simple truth without requiring you to perform acceptability. This feels brutal at first. It feels like you are being cold or cruel or unreasonable. That is the shame talking. That is the internalized voice of whoever taught you that your raw self needs defending. But if you keep practicing, if you keep choosing to state your truth without elaborate justification, something shifts in how you carry yourself in the world. People start responding to you differently, not because you are being aggressive or harsh, but because you are no longer radiating that uncertainty, that need for approval, that willingness to abandon yourself if they push hard enough. You start radiating something else: groundedness, self-trust, internal authority. And the paradox is, this makes you more pleasant to be around, not less. People do not actually enjoy watching you betray yourself. They do not actually want to be given that much power over your sense of reality. What they want, what everyone wants, is to encounter someone who knows themselves, who trusts themselves, who can be in relationship without needing the other person to validate their existence. When you stop explaining too much, when you start trusting that your internal experience is valid without requiring external approval, you give other people permission to do the same. You model what it looks like to respect yourself. And that, more than any amount of explanation, communicates that you are someone worthy of respect. Something is shifting in you now as you read this. You are recognizing how much energy you have spent your entire life trying to prove you deserve to take up space, to have feelings, to assert boundaries. You are recognizing how exhausting it has been to constantly build cases for your right to exist as you are. And maybe you are feeling that terrifying possibility that you could stop. You could just stop explaining. You could trust yourself. You could let your no be no, and your yes be yes, and your I feel this be I feel this, without packaging it in reason and logic and justification. What you are experiencing right now, that mix of recognition and terror and possibility, this is the beginning of something. This is your autonomy trying to emerge from under all that shame. If you made it this far, if something in this video resonated with a place in you that has been waiting to be seen, know that this exploration does not have to end here. Every week on this channel, we go deep into these patterns, these places where development got disrupted, where shame got internalized, where you learn to betray yourself to survive. When you subscribe, you are not just accessing more content. You are joining a community of people who are done performing acceptability, who are ready to trust themselves, who understand that real growth happens in those uncomfortable moments when you practice doing it differently. We are building something rare here, a space where you can explore who you really are beneath all the justifications. You are welcome to be part of this. You have spent your whole life explaining yourself because somewhere along the way, you absorbed the message that your unexplained self is not enough. You learned to distrust your own authority, to constantly seek external validation, to treat your feelings and boundaries as propositions that need defending rather than realities that deserve respect. And that pattern has cost you. It has cost you relationships where you could have been an equal instead of constantly performing acceptability. It has cost you energy, so much energy, building elaborate cases for your right to exist as you are. It has cost you respect, both from others and from yourself. But you can choose differently now. You can practice stating your truth without wrapping it in justification. You can let your boundaries stand unexplained. You can trust that your internal experience is valid simply because you are experiencing it. It will feel terrifying at first. Your nervous system will scream. Every internalized voice will tell you that you are being unreasonable, that you need to explain, that you will be abandoned if you do not defend yourself. But if you can sit with that terror, if you can practice anyway, you will discover something extraordinary. You are enough. Your unexplained self is enough. You always were. Stop explaining yourself. Not because you owe anyone coldness or harshness, but because you owe yourself the dignity of self-trust. You owe yourself the experience of being respected for who you are, not for how well you can argue for your right to be. Start today. Notice the next time you feel the urge to justify. Notice that panic rising. And then, just once, try stating the thing without explanation. I cannot make it. I need space. I feel uncomfortable with this. Just the truth, clean and unexplained. See what happens. See how the world does not end. See how you survive their reaction without managing it. See how it feels to let your boundary stand on its own. This is how you reclaim yourself. This is how you step into the autonomy you should have been allowed to develop naturally. This is how you stop betraying yourself one explanation at a time. You are ready for this. You have always been ready. You just needed permission to trust yourself. Consider this permission.